Rolling.
Hey, 40.1. I should say that I come in here all sleepy, and then Lance makes me a cup of coffee, and my wife makes delicious cookies that she provides us, and they're super sugary, and then, like, so now I'm just, like, buzzed like a frickin', 4-year-old who's eaten too many Cocoa Crisps. Cocoa Krispies. Yeah, these are, see how dark they are? Because that's just sugar and Toll House morsels.
Put those up again.
My wife's the best frickin' cook in the world.
We wouldn't have to do this if she would just bake for a living. We'd be millionaires. Instead, we got to do this crazy show.
But anyway, like, I'm ready for Lance's, like, right of center, way right of center stuff.
He's loaded for bear.
Not really. I don't have any thoughts on anything. Well, I do have one thought about the Olympics. It's like, my wife's watching figure skating, and I shouldn't talk about this, but
by the way, his wife is in excellent shape. She may be a baker, but she hasn't let it destroy her figure.
Well, what's crazy is, like, if you grow up in LA, like Encino, my wife's from Encino. People who grew up in Encino don't have cabs because you drive every place. But my wife, in her adult life, has been hikes like 4 to 10 miles a day. And she takes this TRX class where you hang from straps. It's like, I don't know, it's like cross training or some crazy crap.
It's not a class at all. Rick hangs her from straps.
Okay, but and she at her school they have like a fitness competition. Who can on their Fitbit who can log the most miles of activity, and Carol came in 6th in the whole school, and her team came in 1st. So, yeah, it's nice to. I mean, who knows what kind of an asshole I would be if my wife, like, gradually, like, put on 2 pounds a year or something like that, and it would test my tolerance for physical. I mean, look, I'm psycho, obviously, because, like, I'm fucking almost 58, and I've got like 4.8% body fat, and it's just nuts. And I realize it's nuts, but it does make me kind of an asshole around issues like that.
Rick is never an asshole. He's wrong on everything, but he's a very nice person. In fact, he's nice off the camera and on camera.
Well, thank you.
Even though he's wrong about everything.
Okay. Well.
Is this the 50 Shades of Freed episode?
I don't know. But anyway, my wife just has all these positive qualities.
All right. So, no, that was good about the 50 Shades because, I wonder, actually I do have an opinion about that. Why is it that I was just looking at the trailers for 50 Shades, and I was thinking to myself, why is it that women hate us so much if we're the slightest bit rude, but they're willing to let this handsome rich guy tie them up and degrade them?
Handsome rich guy.
Well, I wasn't.
I mean, you can't fight City Hall or biology, and everybody has sex wiring in their head that runs counter to good behavior and actually, behavior that's not just good moral behavior, but counter to good self-preservation behavior. And apparently, a lot of women have fantasies about being sexually dominated, which doesn't excuse actual real-life assholes from trying to sexually dominate them.
Well, it's actually apparently it's the ticket for a lot of guys, or at least the guy in the movie. What's funny is I can understand a woman wanting to be with a handsome rich guy, but being tied up doesn't appeal to me. And I don't understand why anybody would want to be tied up and be submissive. But maybe there's a female thing that they want a man that's very dominant.
The woman I lost my virginity to, at one point.
Are
Said.
you sure you want to go on with this story?
Yeah, it's nothing.
Okay.
It's like 2 sentences.
All right.
One time she said, "Yeah, you can tie me up," and I'm like, "Nah, that's okay." And then I don't know. A couple weeks later, she dumped me. Maybe she wanted to be tied up. I don't know.
I cannot tell you how many women have asked me to beat them.
Serious.
I can't count the number.
No, you're just messing with me. Now you made me fall into that. Yeah, sorry.
No, actually, they're out there, Rick.
Yeah, but you don't want that.
I'm usually too tired. It's like,
all right, now we've gone into this place that is.
we didn't plan it, but that's the beauty of spontaneous TV. This is real stuff you're watching out there in TV land.
No, but evolution makes dicks of us all, and we all have to exercise vigilance to not be dicks.
I actually think that the reason this one woman wanted me to beat her is because she was so embarrassed about being with me that she thought it would be justified. It would somehow get her over the guilt.
When you say beat, you mean spank, right? You don't mean pummel. Or
Well, I didn't do it.
So you don't really know what flavor.
But who knows what it was going to involve?
Well,
I don't know.
I used to beat myself. I used to punch myself in the mouth to make myself tougher.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you draw blood?
And I give myself a fattish lip. I mean, when
Is
you're,
that why your lips are so fat?
No, that's some weird genetic thing. But when you're a wuss and you don't really know how to toughen yourself up, people who aren't wusses do team sports, which toughens you up. But if you're a wuss, you're kind of on your own. And so there was a period where I'd punch myself in the face, and I would punch walls, trying to bloody up my knuckles, and I would attack parking meters.
What would you do to parking meters?
I'd hit parking meters.
Wow.
Because if you get them solidly, they go, and the change, back when parking meters took change, the change would rattle around a little bit. So anyway, I'm an idiot.
All right, so what else do you want to talk about, Rick?
You had stuff you want to talk about. We'll
Are
come
we
back.
going on to my thing? Because I was saving it. I was saving
All right,
it. I was enjoying the wait.
Oh, I had one dumb thought about the Olympics.
Okay.
To go on top of all the dumb thoughts we've just expressed in the past 10 minutes. That my wife's watching figure skating, and you just have to be really careful to hear what age the figure skaters are before you look at their butts. You really should. I know you should respect the beauty of the field, but sometimes you look at their butts. But you can't, like some of those competitors are 15 years old, and you can't, in good conscience, look at their butts at 15 or 17.
Interesting. So you're guilty of a thought crime.
No, because I won't look at their butts.
No.
Plus, the sultrier ones are usually a little older anyway. And they give clues as to how old they are by, like, whether they dance to like a Disney type song or whether they dance to like ZZ Top, like as I, Tonya did in the movie.
Well, I'm very impressed by your moral rectitude and uprightness when it comes to these.
Oh, if I were
things.
truly upright, their butts wouldn't enter into it at all.
I don't think that's possible. I think the id doesn't make these distinctions. It's the superego that causes all the problems.
Right, but those are Freudian terms, and Freud has been discredited.
Let's go on
Yeah, okay.
to my notes, because, Rick, this should be the end of the Lance versus Rick show. Because this week, your side was completely destroyed. Because there was so much testimony against Obama and Clinton that it's pretty much over. And let me begin.
Oh, where's the testimony? In Senate hearings, House hearings?
Yeah. Here I'll start there were several things you said that really bothered me because I didn't have an immediate response, but they stuck in my mind. The first thing was that you said that you were sure, or somehow there had been no proof that the Clinton email server
Had been hacked.
had been hacked.
Okay, so now you got proof.
Well, I don't have proof. I have the testimony of the head of the FBI, Comey. Comey said at least 5 foreign intelligence services hacked into her emails. I think he said probably or with great certainty or something like that. But for all intents and purposes, the head of the FBI said they were hacked.
All right, then I stand corrected.
Good. That was easy. The second thing, so she's guilty of.
I don't know what she's guilty. I mean,
No,
and I don't want to go around on it.
It's illegal to put classified information on a private server, and it was hacked and damaged the United States.
Yeah, let's not dance around that again. But like, how many? Just one thing. Like, how many documents ended up from her private server ended up being classified as top secret after the fact?
Well, one thing is we're not sure because 30,000 emails were destroyed.
Well, most
by
of which
Clinton in an attempt to
All right,
cover up evidence.
Okay,
to
go on. Let's
obstruct
go on. Let's
justice.
go on. Because what I would say is, yeah, but those were a lot of them were about her yoga classes.
And you believe that?
Mostly, yeah. And
Even
then
though
you
have
would
no
say
evidence
this.
whatsoever.
Well,
By
just-
the way, it's obstructing justice. If somebody asks you for your emails from the government and you just destroy the emails, that's obstruction of justice.
I thought she asked for and received clearance to not include her personal emails.
Nope. No, it doesn't matter because they have to tell you whether they're personal or not. You can't just say, all the ones you asked for are personal. Zip, they're gone.
All right, so next thing.
Yes, you said, now this one we're going to have a bit of an argument about because but I will say, I found out that the dossier was the critical piece of information that got the warrants for the Democrats using the FBI to surveil their political opponent, Donald Trump.
You found it out from some source that I'm going to find unimpeachable.
Yep, it was Andrew McCabe, the second in command of the FBI, and he admitted it in a Senate hearing.
What did he say? What's he quote?
He said that
because you got it written down.
The dossier was the dominant piece of evidence used to obtain the FISA warrant.
Okay, dominant, but not exclusive.
Well, there was one other piece of evidence.
And I know, and you're going to say it came from the dossier somehow.
It was an article by a man named Michael Isikoff in which he quoted
The dossier, okay.
He quoted Steele.
Yeah, all right.
But at that
The author
time,
of the dossier.
But they didn't know, they didn't tell the judge that the author of the dossier was also the author of the article. So
Well-
they used an article to corroborate the dossier written by the same person.
Well, I heard that all this stuff was footnoted, or at least a lot of this stuff was footnoted, but people are arguing about the size of the font used for the footnotes.
No. What the footnote said was some of this, the actual footnote reads pretty much word for word, some of this may have political connections, may have political origins. Now, that's not the same as the FBI saying all of it was written by Sidney Blumenthal, an aide to Hillary Clinton, and given to Steele, along with information from the Kremlin.
Okay, so
that in other words, you don't say, well, in a little footnote, some of this may have political connections, when you know that the dossier was written by people paid $12 million by Hillary Clinton.
I don't understand the 12 million because I hear a figure of 160,000.
Right. They allocated 12 million to GPS. and GPS paid part of that 12 million, 160,000 to steal. The rest of the 12 million, I don't know what they did with. They didn't tell me.
All right, so there's two different numbers, and one of them is
But they're both.
one of them is 75 times as big as the other number.
Yeah, but that just means they kept more of it for themselves. It doesn't mean that they didn't pay it. It doesn't mean that it's of no concern.
Yeah. Well,
Just because I don't have an accounting breakdown,
so
it doesn't mean it didn't happen.
Yeah, all right.
So the Democrats, in their little footnote to the judge, left out the part that the dossier was written by the Clinton campaign. It turns out.
Do we know who the judge is?
No, but
Does the judge drive to work in a short yellow bus?
what they're going to do is the Democrats are fighting it, but the Republicans are attempting to get the FISA warrants revealed to the public. They want to know who the judges were, and they want the actual warrants revealed.
Well, hold on. I'm okay with all that.
Yeah, okay, but your party is not. So they have something to hide.
What are they saying, that this would jeopardize national security or something?
They're saying that it would. It's all of this is a ruse to get people from paying attention to the fact that Trump colluded with the Russians. This is all just a made up thing.
Okay, so my watchword is wait and see. So anyway, but
I have more.
also, well, hold on, because I get to say a thing. So most of this stuff kind of agrees with the Republican, the Devin Nunes memo.
All of it does.
Yeah, and then the Democrats have this. The Republicans had a 3.5-page memo that has been released because the White House said it could be released. And then the Democrats have a 10-page memo that the White House says contains too much, that the Democrats wrote, that rebuts a lot of the points you've made, but hasn't been released because Trump says it contains too much sensitive information. He says he kicked it back to the Democrats and said, I'll consider releasing it if you get in here and remove some of the sensitive information. So we'll see if, so anyway, there's a rebuttal memo out there. Whether it's released or not, we'll see.
Yeah, but the thing is, nothing that I've said can be rebutted. In other words, all of this really did happen. The dossier and the Isikoff article from the dossier were both used.
Yeah,
Andrew McCabe, the deputy head of the FBI,
said it was a big deal.
Said it was.
All right, so fine, but let's see what else comes out.
And that was, and it turns out that Sid Blumenthal, a Clinton aide, and the Russians are the people that wrote the dossier and gave it to Steele. So that's, none of that can be refuted. There's nothing you can say that will make that not true.
That's fine. But I can say that the judge would have to be an idiot in the middle of a very heated political campaign not to have some understanding that, yeah, there is political content. Now, you can say that the judge was not informed as to how political the stuff in the dossier was.
Well, if you were in the FBI and you knew you were giving the judge a Clinton document that she'd paid $12 million for, and you knew that.
Or 160,000.
No, definitely 12 million. 100,000 for the dossier, but 12 million for the people to hire the guy that wrote the dossier.
Oh, so that must be like kick-ass research. You know, I sued wait. I sued a quiz show for inadequate research.
Okay.
They were supposed to quadruple source their information. They failed to do that, and they asked me a question, a multiple choice question, where the correct answer was not among the choices offered. So I would love for like somebody to spend $12 million on research to make sure that the research is super good.
Well, it was direct from the Hillary Clinton campaign, and it was incumbent upon the FBI to tell that to the judge, but they didn't.
They only kind of did, according to you.
No, they didn't. They said that there may be some political some political aspects behind this.
Okay, so
They
let's
said
move
it-
on to the next point, because
All right.
you made your point, sir.
All right, the next point is that this week was the week I've waited several years for. A man named Douglas Campbell spoke before the Congress. Ever heard of Douglas Campbell?
Mm-mm.
You
But he
know-
has something to do with uranium one. 'Cause
Yeah, but you know why you haven't heard of him? Because you're being brainwashed.
all right.
Douglas Campbell is an FBI informant. That means he worked for the FBI and the CIA.
Oh, wait, I heard a little bit about this, but go ahead.
He worked for the FBI and the CIA for about 10 years. And one of the things he was given as an assignment was to pose as an executive for the uranium industry.
Was this the same guy whose testimony was thrown out of an unrelated case because he was considered like not the most reliable witness in the world?
I don't know about that, but this guy was paid tens of thousands of dollars by the FBI, and his information was briefed to the president and the head of the FBI. And he worked for the CIA and the FBI with a sterling record for over 10 years. And he says that while he was working for the Uranium One company, or with them, or across from them, the Russians told him that they knew the deal for uranium would go through, where the U.S. would give 20% of its uranium to Rosatom, because they had bribed Hillary Clinton.
All right. If that's what he testified, you know, I can't counter that. I can say that I think he's the same guy who has an iffy history in terms of as a witness. But
his last job was working for the FBI
as an informant.
because they put him in there. You don't understand. He didn't work for that company. What happened was they told him, your assignment is to get into this company as deep cover while you're working for the FBI, and then you're to report back what happens. So he was an FBI agent. He wasn't some guy that
No, he was an
a
FBI informant.
He was a
He wasn't.
spy.
He wasn't. He was not a guy who'd gone to the FBI academy. He was
he-
the guy they hired to get in there.
No, he worked for the CIA.
He was like Johnny
Wait,
Depp in
no,
that
first,
movie where
first he worked for the FBI. Then
not as an agent, no.
I don't know what he did. It may not be public, but then he was given to the CIA. He worked for the CIA. Then they put him back in the FBI, and the FBI said, we're going to make you deep cover. So your mission is to go in and find out if there's any corruption going on
It's like when
between Hillary Clinton and Putin.
It's like when they take Nicolas Cage and they convict him of a crime and they send him into prison to catch the crooked warden.
And he came back with one report, which he gave to Congress. In 2010, he informed his FBI handlers and Congress that Hillary Clinton was bribed to make the Uranium One deal go through. That was what he found out. In fact, he said that the Russians had engaged in bribes, kickbacks, and extortion. But the Obama administration had allowed the deal to go through after they were told this by him.
Okay.
And that his report went directly to President Obama, and that it turns out that the Russians were secretly aiding Iran with the development of their nuclear program.
Well, didn't we already know that the Russians were on Iran's side? with
Well,
that?
he had proof. This is how we knew.
All right. So I'll lie down on all this, except that on break, let's go upstairs and we'll just Wikipedia Douglas Campbell.
Okay.
Okay. What? Anything else, or are you done with your notes?
Yeah, no, there's more. A man named Dr. Will Harper. Ever heard of Will Happer?
No.
Well, this week he made a special lecture on global warming.
Oh, all right. No, I'm not going to buy anybody's. But go ahead. All right.
Well, you might be interested in him because he was one of the first scientists to ever identify the link between warming and CO2 emissions into our atmosphere.
How old is this guy?
Yeah, I don't know. He looks like he's around 70.
Yeah.
And anyway, so one of the first people to discover that CO2 actually affects the atmosphere by warming it was Dr. Will Happer. Dr. Will Happer said this week that it's not possible to predict what the weather is going to be like in decades. He said no computer model is capable of doing it because there are too many factors that can't be predicted.
Okay.
Do you want to hear the factors briefly?
No, there's a bunch of them.
What it comes down to is the most difficult thing to predict is what water is going to do. He said the temperature on the planet depends on water temperature. Because we have water in the atmosphere and we have water in the ocean, neither of which are predictable. They can't be predicted. And as proof of that, 2 days before the last hurricane hit Florida this year, the weathermen were predicting that the hurricane was going to hit Miami and East Florida. And what happened was it changed position and it hit West Florida.
Yeah, so that's a weird argument to make. Saying that you can't predict weather in its details somehow means that that we shouldn't be afraid of climate change.
No, he said he never says you shouldn't be afraid of climate change. What he says is you can't predict what the weather's going to be because you cannot predict the effect of the sun and cloud formation and water density in the atmosphere, and you can't predict the heat of the ocean because the ocean depends on heat from the atmosphere, oxygen, salt, and CO2, and none of that is predictable.
Okay, so there are a lot of factors.
So you have the shape of clouds affects heat.
Yeah.
And since you can't predict the heat in the atmosphere around the Earth, and you can't predict the heat of the ocean, you can't predict the weather. Because those two factors are infinitely more important than the amount of CO2 that's released into the atmosphere.
Well, not infinitely more important.
Well, he says many, many times more important because the Earth is mainly water, both in the ocean and in the atmosphere.
The surface of the Earth is most.
And the CO2 is a very small factor comparatively.
Well, so we shouldn't worry. Anything can happen. It's unpredictable.
Correct.
Fucking unicorns could fall from the sky.
Right.
And we shouldn't worry about the steadily increasing frickin' temperature of the atmosphere and the oceans. Because it could be, everything could be fine. So let's not worry. Let's just keep pumping more CO2 into the atmosphere. Because, hey, who knows? Because one old guy says it's complicated.
No, he says that human industry does affect it.
Yeah.
But he says it's not a major contributor. What's more of a contributor is the sun and the temperature of the water, which can't be predicted. We don't know what it's going to do in 50 years because we don't know what it's going to do next year.
So what did the tens of thousands of other atmospheric scientists who aren't this guy say in response to one guy saying
this is what he says they're doing. He says that because the computer models are so complicated, because you can't predict what these two waters are going to do, the water in the ocean and the water in the atmosphere, they're trying to limit it to just what would happen if you just put CO2 more and more and more into the
So
atmosphere.
you're saying they're using a model with limited variables that ignores some of the variables that he's trying to talk about.
Right, and he says you can predict if you only limit yourself to a few variables. You can predict what will happen if it's just an increase in CO2.
Well, a fun thing to do is to just keep accumulating data and watch. We've got 150 years of direct temperature measurement, and then we have extrapolating back. We have indirect temperature measurements that go back hundreds and thousands of years via core samples and various other more complicated ways to try to determine temperature before we had thermometers. And you have the models that predict the future, but then you also have 150 years of temperature readings where the temperature beginning in the, 40s, 50s, begins to creep steadily upward.
The temperature started to go up there's an actual year. I think it started to go up in the 1600s. There was a mini ice age in the medieval period. It started to very, very slightly go up in the 1600s. It was still freezing until the 19th century when it began to warm up. And actually the mini ice age continued until the mini ice age went through the medieval period was warm. It was actually as warm as it is now or warmer. Then there was a mini ice age that was at its peak in the 1700s, or the 17th century. Then it started to get warmer, but it was still freezing into the 19th century. And then now it started to warm up again in the 1850s.
And then from starting in the 50s, 60s, 70s, it starts galloping, the rate at which it's warming up.
Well, that's the ski slope.
The hockey stick.
The hockey stick that they say is happening.
Yeah.
But according to this guy, it might also go down.
Yeah, but okay, so one guy says,
Oh, and I'm going to save you the trouble. Full disclosure, the Democrats say he's completely wrong, even though he was the guy that discovered the connection between CO2 and heat increase, and he was one of the head physicists at Princeton.
Hey, do you know who else was wrong about shit? Einstein was talked about the cosmological constant. So it was the greatest mistake in his life. And he wishes he could take it back. Then he died. Then it looks like there's evidence that there is a cosmological constant. So Einstein either way, Einstein was wrong. He was either wrong in saying that there was, or he was wrong in saying it was a mistake. People can make mistakes.
But you know what? This is just one more reason to love the God Emperor Trump, because he's not willing to spend trillions of dollars on something we really can't prove one way or the other.
Or he's not willing to have us make billions of bucks off of developing sources of energy that don't pump out a lot of CO2.
No, we wouldn't make any money. We'd lose a fortune. And that's why he's not going for this.
No, because when you
the
look...
Paris Climate Accords, by everyone's agreement, even the Democrats admit it, would cost the Western civilization a fortune, with not necessarily any good results.
Yeah, you guys are going to be looked back upon by the people of the future as assholes who ignored very obvious evidence that CO2 accumulation from fossil fuels was really messing stuff up, and who argued against it after it was clear.
Not according to the head of physics at Princeton.
Not according to one old guy who...
He's an old guy. What are you, an ageist now?
Yeah.
I'd rather have an old guy.
Yeah, because according to, is it Popper or is it the other guy on the structure of scientific revolutions, it's old guys who need to be swept away by the next generation who have better models of the world. It's often a generational thing. That when new theories come along, it takes the old generation to age out before those theories are accepted.
Okay. completely irrelevant. Is there anything else you wanted to say?
Are you done with your page of notes?
Yeah.
right.
I forgot to say. So you're still going to vote for Hillary, and thank you, Democrats.
Well, I can't vote for Hillary anymore. She's not going to run anymore.
But you would. It doesn't matter to you that she took a bribe.
I'd have to see more about this Douglas Campbell guy to see if she took a bribe.
All right.
And I don't know, does everything... Yeah, that's terrible if that is what happened. And I don't know, it seems unlikely, but in my mind.
Why would he lie? Just out of curiosity.
I don't know. Let's go, we're going to Wikipedia him in a second.
Okay.
And you want a break now? It's been a while.
Okay.
All right, bye.